Greetings and salutations, travelers of the internet, and welcome to the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna, and we'll be your wise or not so wise mentors for today's audio adventure into all things storytelling. Hey, welcome to episode 19.
Episode 19. We're almost at 20.
Woo-hoo. We are going to be talking about bookshelf organization today, which I'm very excited about. Something a little different from what we've been talking about, which is just
I need tips.
Yeah, well, me too, honestly. But
I need tips and tricks.
We'll see what we can do about that. But, of course, do a little shameless plug here. Our Patreon is available if you would like to participate in our next read-along for voting. Of course, you can always listen to the read-along wherever you are already listening to our podcast. But if you want voting rights, join our Patreon. The next voting round will be coming up shortly because we're almost done with our Hall of Smoke read-along, which, by the way, Hall of Smoke is one heck of a debut novel.
Oh yeah, it's popping off. It's real good.
It's so good. H.M. Long has done a phenomenal job. So, highly recommending that book to all of you. Otherwise, I want to know what you're playing, reading, watching. What you got for me, Joseph?
Yeah. So, no D&D update
Aww.
this time. Yeah, we've had to go on a little bit of a hiatus because of just random stuff, but we'll be back at it eventually. Don't you worry. We got to figure out how one of our players is going to keep a dragon egg somehow.
I'm invested in the dragon
grief.
egg.
Yeah. So are all of us, apparently. So, but I have been playing more Elden Ring. That's pretty much it, though. For reading, like you said, reading Hall of Smoke, and I'm still reading Oathbringer. It's a big one. It's a big book. I'm plugging away. I crossed the 100 mark for the chapters. So.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say page. I was like, well, you're moving not very fast. But
Nope,
100
chapters.
Holy moly.
Granted, it's audiobook, so I know it's easier than, because I can like listen while I'm driving. 100 chapters of like page turning, that would be even more impressive. But still, it's a long book. It's a real long one. Come on, Brandon. What are you doing? Man, that's why it takes you, like, he's a really, really fast writer, right? He's wicked fast. But these books takes him a little longer to crank out, and I understand why, just by sheer page count.
Yeah.
Anyway, and for watched, still watching Critical Role Campaign 3, which there's going to be a new episode this week, and I can't wait to see it because of the cliffhanger from the last one. And I'm off Thursday, so I'll definitely get to watch it.
Nice.
Also still watching Ghost Files with Shane and Ryan on YouTube.
I haven't.
That's fun.
I haven't started that yet. I need to.
It's good fun. Let's see. And also, of course, still watching House of the Dragon. Holy smokes. Crazy show. Crazy. I have a lot of feelings with House of the Dragon. I have a lot of feelings. It's a good show. It's just a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I also have a lot of thoughts. Maybe we do an episode on that sometime. Because we could really
especially
get into
like
it.
Comparing it with, it's hard to not compare it to Game of Thrones. You know? Also hard to not compare it to Rings of Power since they're happening at the same time.
Right.
And that's the next thing I was going to mention, watching Rings of Power. That has been crazy, psycho bonkers also, but in a different way.
Yes. Very different.
If you want to hear about all the theories about people that are out there right now, go watch the last episode that we recorded.
Everyone is Sauron.
Everyone is Sauron is the title. A lot of people are thinking that it's, I mean, spoilers if you haven't seen the show. A lot of people are thinking it's Halbrand right now, and I'm still not convinced. I know people are pointing at a lot of interactions that he had with Adar in the last episode. I don't know. I still feel like it's a misdirect. Maybe it is. Like it of course could be. It could be anyone because he's a shapeshifter. But like, if it's Halbrand, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be as into it. But whatever. That's Rings of Power. She-Hulk. That's been. It's been like it's weird. It's good. Like I've enjoyed it, but it's definitely different from all the other Marvel shows,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. No, and it took a very like serious turn in the last episode. In a way.
I don't know if I've seen the last one.
With she went on that date with the wedding guy.
Oh, I think. Oh no!
I mean,
I might need to rewatch that. I might have fallen asleep during that. Now that I think about it.
I mean, the episode itself seemed fairly lighthearted, as all of them do. But the ending of that one, it took a hard left.
Yeah.
So
the last one I remember is the wedding episode. Is the last one that I really remember. But I do remember watching an episode where she was going on dates with. Oh no! She went on dates with the wedding guy, and then he ghosted her, and then she went to hang out with like the weird people in the. Okay, so no, I did watch that one. Yeah. Never mind.
But it took a hard left turn, and that's all I'm gonna say.
So She-Hulk, Andor is really good. There might be a new episode of that. I need to check. I need to check. I need to look into that. I might be behind one. I also, in anime, have been watching. Well, first of all, we're watching Given, which is an anime that has been a journey.
Yeah. It's a music anime.
Yeah. It's hard not to make fun of it though, just because one of the characters sings and everyone acts like he's such an incredible singer, but he just sounds so silly in my opinion. But it's okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if that's like a translation thing.
Yeah, maybe.
But it strikes me as really silly too. So.
But we're watching it in the original, like Japanese.
Right, but I mean, like, is it because it's Japanese singing that makes it sound different to us than if it was?
Yeah, maybe.
Someone in
maybe
English. I don't know.
Listen to the dub, and maybe it would sound better to me. I don't know. It's kind of silly though.
It's the secondhand cringe is so strong that it makes me want to crawl out of my skin. But
but other than that, it's actually really good.
Yes, agreed.
I also watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners on Netflix, which is an anime based on the Cyberpunk 2077 game, and that was actually really good. It's definitely for mature audiences, so keep that in mind. But it was actually really good. It's like a futuristic cyberpunk, obviously, story about a high school kid that has to do a bunch of crazy stuff. So yeah, it's really fun. So that one was actually good. And I've also started watching Vinland Saga on Netflix, which is an anime about Vikings.
Oh.
And that has actually been really good. I think you would like it.
Okay.
Anna specifically. I mean, it is pretty violent, but it's also, I mean, it's about Vikings, and they're pretty violent folk. But there's some really likable characters.
Nice.
It does kind of, I feel like a lot of Viking shows, like there's specific tropes that Viking themed shows tend to stick to.
Sure.
And this one definitely continues to do that.
I mean, I think if you're going into something because it's a Viking show or book or premise, like, you're expecting those things, right? Like, we've talked about tropes before. Tropes aren't inherently bad.
No, it's once, if you decide to watch it, like, I don't want to say exactly what I'm thinking, because if you watch it, I don't want to spoil anything, but if and when you watch it, because I think you'll like it, I'd recommend you do, let me know so that I can talk to you about, like, how this specific event seems to happen in so many Viking themed shows.
Fair.
Anyway, so that's Vinland Saga, but it's actually really good. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me though. with the
Nice.
watching stuff. So,
Nice.
what you got?
Well, I'll do my reading first. So Hall of Smoke, The Princess and the Scoundrel. I haven't made a lot of progress on that. I'm being honest. It's good.
Shame.
Just how dare you? Also, Howl's Moving Castle. Still working on that. We are moving on to these Happy Golden Years in the Little House series, so that's exciting. And we're almost done with the Secrets of Storytelling, which is that creative writing workbook. So,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I got for reading at the moment. For watching, I forgot to mention that I watched Thor, God of Love and Thunder.
I just thought of two other things I forgot too, so it's okay. Continue.
It's a weird movie. It was weird.
It's a weird one. Yeah.
And
sure.
I normally, in the past, I've really enjoyed the Taika Waititi Marvel movies. But this one was so weird that I had a hard time with it. And it was like emotional whiplash with the Jane storyline. It was just a lot. It was just a lot. It was nice to see Natalie Portman again in universe, but yeah, not my favorite. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Also watching Critical Role Campaign 2. I'm on episode 97, which is the live stream, which I think is going to be right before COVID happens. Like, I don't think there's many more episodes before they're on camera. Or
If it's a live show, then yeah, COVID hasn't quite happened yet.
No, obviously not.
Yeah.
But this live show happened in early March of 2020. So
Yeah.
it's right
after
around the river bend.
There's going to be like a time jump. It'll be March, and then all of a sudden it'll be June. And
Oh,
because they had to stop doing it for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. Crazy things are happening. And you were correct in assuming that I would be sending you some all caps text messages. I did some last night. Because, oh my goodness.
I'm sorry if I don't respond because I might be working or something. So I'm sorry for not responding right away, but I do still enjoy reading them. So please keep sending them to me.
Can do. Can and will do. Yeah. And then Campaign 3, excited for the new episode this week. Speaking of new things, My Hero Academia is back for season 6. I watched that. Is that the one of the things you forgot? And I'm going to guess the other one was Spy Family.
Spy Family's back. Oh, that's one of my favorites. I love Spy Family so much.
Good. It's so good. Did you guys buy the manga for that one? Or did
I have the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one that I would like to collect. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I wouldn't mind continuing to collect those, but yeah, I only have the first one so far.
Yeah. Andor, again, really good. Exciting to see Mon Mothma as like a more fleshed out character.
Yeah, for sure.
She's different than I was expecting, but I'm okay with that. She-Hulk, we already touched on that. House of the Dragon, yeah, lots of feelings, conflicting feelings. We should have an episode once the season is done, because they've done some really interesting things as far as storyline goes and like time jumps. But I think it deserves its own little bubble. Rings of Power. Yeah, so our last episode is episodes 1 through 5, and it's up through 6 now. So, and episode 6 was wild. I will say, Galadriel fighting on horseback, I'm here for it.
Oh, it was so good.
So good.
She was just like throwing herself around on there, dodging spears and arrows and stuff. It was so cool.
So cool.
There's a horse chase. And she actually like said Norolim to her horse, just like Arwen does in Fellowship, and it gave me chills.
Yes.
Oh!
So
anyway,
good.
Sorry. You want to hijack your
No,
moment. Continue.
you're good. Given, we talked about that already. Now, the oddball thing that I watched that I'm hesitant to even mention because it's
Here we go.
a little controversial.
Is it the Jeffrey Dahmer show?
Yes, Monster Dahmer. So before I talk about my next thing that I watched, I do want to put a gentle disclaimer that this is disturbing and may not be your cup of tea. Will not be offended if you skip forward until we start talking about bookshelves, which will be a much more pleasant bit of conversation. I wasn't going to watch it, and then Hope watched the first episode of it, and I was like, well, now I'm curious. I have not watched anything that made me feel so down in my bones icky.
Yeah,
Like,
that checks out.
it's real gross. And I think that the criticism that it's receiving is valid, and that it does seem to kind of be glorifying Dahmer in a way. I don't know that that was the intention, but it's definitely how it reads. And also the intention to, like, kind of humanize him. Like, there were moments in the show where I was like, wow, I feel... And I mean, I do feel bad for him as a person. Because what a messed up life to live. And, like, you can have compassion for that. But also, like, what a disgusting act of depravity for a human to have. To do what he did to his victims.
And especially if it's something like that where it's based on a real person. I've mentioned before, that's not enough escapism for me. I need that is too real life. Too real life. I need, and it just exposes too much of, like, the dark underbelly of humanity in real life. And so I feel like I probably won't enjoy it. I'll probably watch it just the same way you watch a car crash.
Yeah,
with
and
morbid
that's
fascination.
Yeah, and that's more or less how it ended up being for me. I mean, he was. There's also a lot of racism built into it, right? Because he did target POCs, so people of color, and he was living in a apartment that was predominantly black. Just makes my heart hurt a little bit. So
bookshelves.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to go on a tangent about that. But I thought it's timely anyway. But it's controversial, and I think it's fair that it is. It's not like some of the other things, like Turning Red was controversial, and the reasons that people were upset about it, we didn't find to be incredibly valid, but this, I think the controversy around the Dahmer show is from other black folks saying, hey, this is gross. And it is. So.
Indeed.
All right. So let's talk about bookshelf organization. Mine is, to the uninitiated, may seem like a bit of a hot mess, which is totally fair. But let me explain the reason to my madness. I'm curious to hear how you organize your bookshelves.
My bookshelf.
Your bookshelves.
I organize my bookshelf real good.
Your bookshelves. And then talk about some different ways that people organize their bookshelves. So, which do you want to start with? Do you want to talk about how we organize ours or the options?
Let's talk about how we organize ours, and then we can go over the options that I will probably end up switching to at some point.
Okay, sounds good.
After we talk about it.
Yeah. So why don't you share your organization first? Since I just talked a lot about what I was watching and reading.
So right now, I actually recently went through and reorganized things, although it could use some fine tuning because I think it's gotten a little out of order just because I've pulled some stuff out. But right now, my books, I mean, there's like different sections of my shelves, right? There's like board game section, movie section, book section.
Right.
I'm assuming we're specifically talking about books because bookshelf and your shelves are almost exclusively books in your office that I can see.
Yeah.
So for books, my shelves are organized alphabetical by author.
Oh.
So, which you probably wouldn't have expected.
No.
But just because that's the way it is in Barnes & Noble.
I assume by last name?
Last name.
Okay.
Correct. So that's the way it is. And there are shelves where I have, because the IKEA shelves we have are pretty deep. So I've got something in the back elevating a little bit so I can have like a double row with like a row in the front and then a row in the back that's a little elevated so I can still see what the titles are in the back.
Sure.
But yeah, it is alphabetical by author last name, which doesn't really help me because sometimes I don't remember what the author's name is and then I'm just scanning through trying to find the right book. But
Sure.
I think I was trying to train myself to I don't want to say like care more because it makes it sound like I didn't care about who the author was, but just I've always been notoriously bad with names, and I think remembering an author's name is at least a way to kind of like respect all the work they did to make the book. So I want to try to be better at remembering the author's name. So organizing my bookshelves in that way was also kind of a way to train me. Has it been successful? Negative. But I at least had the thought.
Yes.
It's the thought that counts. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's
Interesting.
my bookshelves.
And you count the manga in that as well, or does manga have its own section?
The manga is separate, and that is just by series. That isn't actually that one is just the ones that I don't have like a full series of, and there's like multiple different ones on the shelf. It's either random or just by the title of the series. It's not by author name.
Sure.
Anyway,
I was just thinking of My Hero, and like I know that Horikoshi, but I only ever call him by his last name. I don't do the Kohai, and so it's just Horikoshi.
yeah, I don't know.
At
I
least I think that's his last name. They
who knows?
they do first and last names the same that we do, right?
Yeah, but I feel like they call each other by their last names way more often than we do.
Right.
So
Yes.
I bet it's Horikoshi. That's probably his last name.
Yeah.
Um,
As a respect thing. They do
yeah,
that.
I feel like I kind of know. I used to know the name of the person who does Hunter x Hunter. I don't anymore. Is it
I don't
Togashi?
I don't know Hunter x Hunter because I don't have any of that, but I know Demon Slayer is
That one I don't know.
Kimetsu.
That sounds right. Maybe.
Um,
I feel like, and I think the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring games are Miyazaki or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Mia,
But
well, anyway,
Miyazaki.
he does Ghibli.
Anyway.
He's the Ghibli guy. But anyway.
Oh, so
Right?
anyway,
Okay, so
that's
you
my
have your
bookshelves. So
manga in its own little section.
yeah, the manga is not in the same way, but it is separate. The manga is separate from my chapter books.
Okay.
The graphic novels are separate.
Fair. Fair. Well, my bookshelves change every so often because I will acquire more books and then I'll have to figure out how to reconfigure things. And it's because mine is not alphabetical by author, it is just a mess sometimes. But so here's how I have been organizing my books for forever. I have multiple bookshelves. And I have one bookshelf that our dad gave to me when I was when I moved down to my bedroom downstairs. It's like a really nice wooden bookshelf that I've been using since high school. And on that bookshelf, I tend to put my books that I don't want to say they're my most prized books because I don't know that that's true, but the top shelf is all of my Tolkien collection because he's my favorite. And the Lord of the Rings are my favorite, and I have multiple copies of the Lord of the Rings. Not as many copies as some of the people on TikTok that I follow, and I am jealous of some of their copies of Lord of the Rings. I need to up my game, but also I don't need to spend the money, so it's fine. But so I start with my Lord of the Rings books, and then that transitions into my C.S. Lewis collection because I feel like those two belong next to each other. And I want them to be next to each other on my book shelf. And then my C.S. Lewis collection, I also have my Watership Down book in there by Richard Adams because I read Watership Down right after I finished The Lord of the Rings, and that was another recommendation from our dad, and I like keeping those together. It's just a weird association from when I was a kid that I just want them to be together.
Yep.
They belong together. Which is weird. Because Watership Down I suppose it's fantasy, but more just fiction.
It's about talking bunnies. It's fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it fits.
Yeah.
And then my C.S. Lewis collection quickly turns into like my apologetics collection from like my books from college or whatever. I've got Bible study books in there. I have a lot of those.
Out.
So
C.S. Lewis morphs into
yes, well, because I have a lot of his apologetic books anyway.
Yeah.
So that's one shelf, and then over here on my other shelves, I have like a young adult collection. I try to keep all the YA books kind of together, with the exception of like The Hobbit and the Narnia books, obviously, because those stay over there. Those books are not organized in any... The YA books are kind of in their own little... They're in a bubble, and I keep like series together. So like all of my Laini Taylor books are together. All of my... who else have I got? All of my Kristen Kishore books, those are all together. And they're all kind of a similar size. So those books are organized by series and by size. So if I've got a bunch of hardcovers that are the same size, they go together. And then I can stack books on top of them sideways. Mm-hmm. It's a real hodgepodge. It just looks like a quilt. Basically, I'm just trying to maximize space on the shelf. Yep.
It's like Tetris.
That is the name of the game. For the YA section.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my Christian fiction section. Again, not by author. Sometimes when I organize that shelf, I'll put the author that I like the most first. That's really what it boils down to. I try to put the ones that I really like at the top. And then move down to ones I haven't read. Because I don't have my to-be-read books pulled out. Some people are really cool and have like TBR shelves, but if I did that, it would be a disaster. Mm-hmm. And then I have what used to be a Star Wars tower because I have the Billy bookshelves from IKEA, so I've got a skinny shelf in the corner. That was my like books from undergrad and grad school, like fiction and nonfiction, whatever. That fit in there, and then I pulled that out, and then it was my Star Wars tower for a while, and now it's my Manga Tower. And it starts with My Hero Academia, because that's the one that I own all the volumes for so far. It's still being released. And it has the most volumes so far. And then it goes to, I have like a wider shelf, so some of the manga I have are taller, so they have to go on that shelf. And then it's Demon Slayer, because I haven't read Demon Slayer yet. And then, at least not all of it. I've read part of it. And then I've got my Yona of the Dawn, which is a growing collection. And then my Snow White with the Red Hair, another growing collection. Mm-hmm. And then the bottom of that little tower, I have crammed my school books into a little cube. Where I can't necessarily see the titles.
Nice.
But that's where they are. And then my other shelf... I moved my Star Wars books up to the top. So I've got those organized by New High Republic. And then the Legends novels that I own, which is a lot. Actually, those are split.
It's a lot.
It's all split up now. It's split up right now because I was having a hard time. Anyway, my shelves are still a mess. This is part of why I want to talk about these. And then I have like my adult fantasy section. Which includes the Robert Jordan and Diana Gabaldon books, which are the outline. Oh my goodness, words, which are the Outlander books.
How about V.E. Schwab?
They're the same height,
there?
So that's why those go together. So the Schwab books that I have, because she has two different pen names that she writes under.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So the books of hers that I have that are paperback or hardcover, physical copies are YA. So her books are in my YA section. But the ones that I've listened to are adult, and if I had those books, they would be in the adult section. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of like sorting by genre a little bit, with the exception of my Tolkien and C.S. Lewis section.
Yep.
And like my Dragonlance books are over there in that section. My Scott Lynch books are over there in that section. The Rin Chipeka books, Chipeko. So that's the Bone Witch, that series, which is really good. I technically have my Madeline L'Engle books in there, so that's A Wrinkle in Time. They should be with
The YA.
They should be with the YA, but there's a perfect little spot for them. So they're chilling in the adults fantasy right now. And then more Star Wars books, which are double stacked, which I don't love the way that I have them double stacked, but I can't find a better solution at the moment, so I'm just having to live with it for now. I need another bookshelf. A lot of these shelves are double stacked.
You need like a room that is a library.
I mean, that's essentially what I've done with my office, right? I have 4 bookshelves in my office.
But no, I'm saying you've got a whole other room over there that
room is very full of fabric at the moment, but I hear you.
Oh, okay. Just turn your basement into a big library. Get some of those rolling shelves that you can like roll around with like one of those rolly ladders too.
My basement is not as climate controlled as my upstairs is.
Yeah, a musty basement might not be good for paper.
No. And then I have a poetry section, and next to my poetry section, I have my Rena Rossner and Naomi Novik books, because Rena Rossner includes a lot of poetry in her books, and so I wanted her next to the poetry, but she's also one of my Jewish authors that I really like, and Naomi Novik is also a Jewish author, so their books need to stay together, and because of the poetry in Rena Rossner, they go with the poetry books. Can you see?
I love, there's a method to the madness. Clearly.
Oh, there totally is, yes.
It's just hilarious. Okay, I should also say what I was talking about was mainly just like my fiction books. Mm-hmm. I do have another bookshelf in the bedroom that has some other more kind of random stuff. Like the bookshelf out in the living room has pretty much just fiction and manga and graphic novel stuff. But the bedroom is where a lot of like you were talking about, what's the word you used?
Nonfiction?
Like nonfiction and also Christian related.
Apologetics.
What's the word you used? Oh, that's the word. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That type of book. Yeah. A lot of those are in the bedroom. But so I do have another bookshelf with that stuff on it too. So
sure.
The Lord of the Rings books, there are the fancy ones get a special spot at the very top of the shelf between my bookends for the Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost bookends, and my Japanese version of the Silmarillion is also up there.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, those are like on display. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But yeah, my books are a little more organized, it seems, but like I said, I have less of them. The board game situation is a little more out of hand. That's like Tetris. That's just board game Tetris. So
sure, that makes sense, because those boxes are all different sizes and shapes. And I think that I like that my books are kind of by genre. So like if I have someone who's like, oh, I'm really interested in X genre, I can turn to my shelves and be like, okay, what do I have in my YA section that fits? I wish that my YA section was a little more not chaotic. It's solely organized by book size at this point. And I wish that it was maybe a little more genre specific inside of the YA section, because that's kind of broad. Granted, most of my YA is fantasy.
I do like that you have your YA split up from your adult fiction, and that, like you said, there's definitely like a method to it. It makes sense. It's not just strictly alphabetical by author, because if you did it just like that way, it would be all mixed up.
Well, and honestly, I think one of the things that has kept me from doing that is my Star Wars collection.
Yeah.
Because
You'd split up the group.
Well, because I want them to be in chronological order and not by author name. And that was something that always drove me absolutely crazy at Walden Books and Hastings Books, was that they would just be by, which I know it makes sense. I understand why they were by author name, but it made it so hard because like original Star Wars Legends, those books for like one author wrote a trilogy.
Yeah.
But then they got into these longer series where they rotated the authors through. And so then they wouldn't be in any kind of order, and the name wouldn't give you any kind of indication of what order they were supposed to go in. I'm talking about the Tempest, Bloodlines. And that's out of order. It's Bloodlines, Tempest, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. There's like 10 of them. And they get all out of order. So, my Star Wars books have set the precedent for me to not organize my books by author name. And for some reason, I don't like the idea of having the Star Wars books not organized or blatantly organized in a different way from the rest of the books.
That's fair. Luckily, I don't have any Star Wars books like that. Okay, so here's the thing with mine. I can get away with it because I don't have to split any series up. Like, all my Brandon Sanderson's going to be next to each other. So, like, all of the, of course, like, okay, so Sanderson, that's the S's. Okay, so he gets his own section, right? Yeah. And all of his books then are going to be in order. Like, all the series, I think it's actually, it is alphabetical by author, and then once it's a certain author, like Sanderson, then it's by series. It's not like chronological because there is no chronological order to those books. It might be in order written, maybe, but
to the credit of Barnes and Noble and Walden Books doesn't exist anymore, and Hastings Books, they would always have like a Star Wars book section, but it would be like by author within that section. So it's not like Star Wars books were, at least it used to be. I will say, now that Star Wars is openly breaking out into the YA market and middle grade market, they are not in their own little section in YA because there's not that many of them. So they're scattered throughout, and that drives me just a little bonkers. I wish that all the Star Wars books could just be in one section.
Yeah.
And live happily together.
Yeah.
But they do not. And they're also breaking into manga. So... And obviously Star Wars comic books have been around for forever. But yeah, so they're kind of scattered all over the place. Which is fine, I suppose. They probably have a better chance of reaching new readers that way. Because if you don't know the Star Wars section exists, you're not going to go to it. But if you're looking for a middle grade book and you're like, oh my gosh, look at the Star Wars book. I understand. It's just, for someone who's been collecting them for forever, it'd be nice if they could all be in the same spot.
So what are these other methods for? Because I've seen some wacky stuff on TikTok. The funniest one to me being someone who organized all their books by color.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that one because I would never find my books again.
If I honestly did that. Respect. Like, it looks beautiful. Could not ever find any book ever.
Yeah, no, it looks great. But it would drive me absolutely batty that I would have to split up my Lord of the Rings books because my Fellowship book has a yellow spine, Two Towers is green, Return of the King is blue. That would kill me.
Yep.
To have to, and all my Star Wars books would be
nuts.
All over the
It'd
place.
Be crazy. It'd be madness.
My Lainey Taylor books, because their spines are different colors, it would just be chaos. It would look so pretty. If I were like a book talker and I had books behind me, like as a display, okay. But you can't tell me that at some point, because then what happens when you buy a new book? I mean, this happens This doesn't really happen to me because my organization is so chaotic that I can get away with just like sandwiching a book into a new spot and making a new spot for it. But if you got a red book, you'd have to move
Everything. Yeah, no thanks.
Which I suppose if you got a book by like, I don't even know. If you got a Lee Bardugo book in your current system, you would have to move a lot of your books to get the B to fit in with the Bs.
Yeah, and that's when I end up having to like what I said about having to recalibrate some things. That's kind of why. It's because there's some things that need to be added in that I'm gonna have to do some shuffling. But it's fine. That's just the way it is. But by color, no way, no how. Couldn't deal with that.
I also feel like I would have a really, like, the number of books I have that have a black spine, it would just be like a lot of black.
And this is the goth corner. This is where the black books are.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And like, oh my gosh, if I put my manga in there, the My Hero books are like all over the place for colors.
Yep.
So I've pretty much ruled color out for myself.
Yeah.
Unless I were to like want to just create like a rainbow somewhere in my house and I could cherry pick just for a season. They wouldn't lose their spots on the official bookshelves. They'd just be temporarily pulled out to be a rainbow. Just
to be a little splash of color.
Right.
Anna's books of the month. You make her a little rainbow.
There you go. And then just cherry pick like a red one, an orange one, a yellow one,
and then
a green one.
Underneath, you could have a cute little hanging that said, "Can you paint with all the colors of the week?"
There you go. Yeah.
And with your little book rainbow.
Yeah, that'd be really cute. That'd be fine because it'd just be, 6-ish books, unless you count magenta. But let's not get crazy. Right, no, 7. It would be 7 books unless you count magenta, and then it would be 8. But, Roy G. Biv.
Yeah.
So what else we got? But I couldn't do that in my whole. I mean, so you could do like I'm doing by genre and then by author. So combining our two methods, which I think is probably the sweet spot for me. If I could have my genres and then by author.
Honestly, mine are kind of like that anyway, because most of the fiction I have is fantasy.
It's easy when you only have one genre.
Yeah, I've got my niche.
I mean, I also have, like, my Christian fiction is primarily romance. So if I get other romance, not like I have The Time Traveler's Wife kind of sitting over there right now, even though that one could be classified as fantasy, it doesn't currently fit in my fantasy section. So it's just kind of waiting for a spot.
I do have some books that are worked into mine though that are hopes books, like the To the Boys I Loved Before.
Oh yeah.
YA, that is definitely not
YA romance.
That is not fantasy.
No.
Well, in a way it is, but not in the same way.
No, it falls. No. No,
I mean, you know what I mean. It's not.
I
fantastical.
do know what you mean. Right.
There's no dragons.
No.
There's plenty of fantasizing involved, but there's no.
It's just a romance. No bookseller would be like, "This is fantasy." Put it in the fantasy section.
Yeah, unless it's about fairies.
No magical element in that.
It's just fairy romance.
I'm talking about that specific book. There's no fairy romance.
Yeah. So, I think that genre and then by author within the genre, I think that's a pretty smart way to do it.
Yeah. And then I think if I really wanted to be, specific, my anthologies and my nonfiction would be by Dewey Decimal. But I have no idea what the Dewey Decimals are for them. So it would mean a lot.
Honestly, I know. I'm just making sure that you know. What's the Dewey Decimal system?
Oh, I love you.
Because, it's probably been a really long time since you had to think about what the Dewey Decimal System was. Like probably way back in like the beginning of high school, since you talked about that in English class. So I'm making sure that you remember. How does the Dewey Decimal System work, Anna?
I mean, I basically brought up the Dewey Decimal System as a joke, but because it's what libraries use.
I do know it's what, or, oh good, you know it's what libraries do. Yes, me too. So beyond that it's how libraries do it. What's the method to that?
So each range of numbers covers a genre.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what range of numbers covers what genre.
That's fair.
So you might look for a 100.93, and if I knew my Dewey Decimal System, I would know that meant mysteries. I have no idea what the hundreds are, so that was totally fictitious. And so that's how the Dewey Decimal System works.
It's just numbers assigned to specific genres.
Theoretically not theoretically, emphatically making it easier to get the books to the correct shelf. Because if you know this is in the 100 series, you know where that shelf is. So you take it to the 100 series. And then you don't have to like intuitively know when you look at a book called, let me think of a good example. If you look at a book titled Secrets, that title doesn't tell you anything about what the genre might be.
Correct.
So if it has a Dewey Decimal number on it, and you're trying to shelve books quickly, and you look at it and you go, oh, this is in the 500 series. And you know that 500 series is over with YA historical romance. And it goes in there. I have not read Secrets. It's on my shelf. My impression is that it's a historical romance, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how it functions in like a functional setting, I guess.
Yes, you're correct. I'm glad that you remembered what the Dewey Decimal System was. So, anyway, I feel like I
brought it up as a joke.
That's definitely sure.
But people don't know what the Dewey Decimal number is assigned to a book. Like it's very much used in libraries.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good system for like very large scale collections. For just like a bookshelf, I don't think you need the Dewey Decimal System for my humble little row on a bookshelf.
No, absolutely not.
But I do understand the value in that when you have like 20 different shelves that are all 20 feet long, all full of books, and you don't know what kind of book it is, just looking at that number and knowing exactly where to put it, that's valuable. So.
Yeah. And, it's possible that Dewey Decimal is outdated by now. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it is, but I don't have a degree in library science, so I don't know for sure.
Yet.
Well, there's always time.
There's always time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that sweet spot you're in with the genre and then by author.
Well, I think if I
implemented
it, it would be a good way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, some of your stuff is like that. It's, I mean, there's the pain points of the YA section and all that, but I think that's a good method to do it. If I had more books that had multiple genres, maybe I'd think about doing that, but I don't have enough different genres to justify it.
Fair.
So.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
There's always time.
There's always time for more books.
So, what do you think about the idea of pulling all of your books that you haven't read yet off of your shelf and putting them in a TBR pile?
My TBR pile would be huge.
And your bookshelf would be empty?
Yeah.
Just have a few Brando Sando books.
I mean, come on. Lord of the Rings could stay. A good chunk of Brandon Sanderson could stay.
Your Robert Jordan books could mostly stay.
All of the Wheel of Time books that I currently own could stay. That's it. I think I'd have to look at it just to know for sure. And the books that we've done for the read along could all stay. But like, no, that's not feasible for me, because I buy things that I think I'd be interested in, and then it sits on my shelf for a long time before I get to it. It's the same with video games.
My shelves are exactly the same. So
yeah, I don't think that's feasible for me. But yeah. Anyway.
So
well, cool.
In the
Thank you for
comments,
taking me on this journey.
You're very welcome. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about my bookshelf organization or lack thereof. No, it is organized. It's just
only you know how. Might not be as obvious for someone else that walks in cold and looks at it.
Yeah, there are a few, like my Star Wars books should be all together. Right now there's stuff in between them, but that's because of there's reasons.
Yeah.
Anyhow, dear listener, if you're still with us, thank you. And please let us know in the comment section or on Facebook or wherever you follow us how you organize your bookshelves. And if you think that there is an absolutely correct way to do it. I tend to think if it's working for you, let it ride. But sometimes it's not working. So.
And you just don't want to admit it.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I guess, so maybe I'll get more books and I'll actually get to do the multiple genre thing. We'll see.
There you go.
Someday.
I mean, technically, thinking about our read-along books, we've been pretty much in the fantasy camp. Except that Renna Rossner you could pull out because it's like a subgenre. But
yeah, there's still dragons. For me, it's still going into fantasy.
I know, but it's I hear you, but I think that one's just a little more nuanced.
It is unique.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, next week will be another read-along for Hall of Smoke. The second to last read-along?
Yeah.
There you go. So our list for the next options for our read-along after Hall of Smoke will be available soon. So once again, go check out our Patreon to if you want to become a member and get voting rights. And check that out. But I guess unless you had something else you wanted to add about bookshelves.
Nope. Just fill them up.
Oh, okay. Yes, fill those shelves. And I guess until next time, go read something cool.
And we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.